Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. Celtic 2, Atlético Madrid 2. The Champions League just gets a little bit more painful, as always. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. All that jazz. I don't care at the moment. I'm a bit sore after tonight's result because, you know, in the grand scheme of things, it's a result that shows that Celtic can compete with the big boys. This was the toughest team to draw in the group. This was the game that, in all respects, Celtic shouldn't be winning, shouldn't even have a chance in. And leaving Celtic Park, if you're being totally honest with yourself, you'd be expecting nothing. But come the end of it, you're thinking to yourselves, Celtic should be leaving with something. And it's another game in the Champions League that, once again, I feel like Celtic have left themselves shortchanged. I thought we'd done a lot of good things in the game, a couple of bad things in the game. And ultimately, it's just a sore one to leave Celtic Park with. We played very well for portions of the game, just like we did against Lazio, just like we did against Feyenoord. But once again, we just didn't have that, you know, that final ingredient, you could say, which makes you leave the stadium with all 3 points. Ultimately, it makes the group a tougher one for Celtic to leave from, with a position that advances you into the final stages of a European competition. Third place becomes further out of reach. Second place, completely out of reach, it feels like. There is a glimmer of hope, considering the results elsewhere. But we just love making these things difficult for ourselves, don't we? We'll leave the bigger picture for the end of the video. We'll talk about that at the end. But we've got to talk about the 90 minutes that we just witnessed there. In retrospect, once I've got in the house, I've settled down, I've watched the highlights over again, I can leave the game and I can sit here now saying I'm immensely proud of Celtic for the performance tonight. They're going up against one of the best teams in Europe, one of the best teams in Spain, and left a good account of themselves. You know, a lot of teams would have wrote us off tonight. I say a lot of teams, a lot of people would have wrote us off tonight. A lot of people would have thought that this could have been a game where Atlético go win 3-4, 5-0. But Celtic went out and they showed that they can really compete with the best of the best. And what I'm really happy with, you know, it's hard to take positives from these sorts of games. It's hard to leave Celtic Park and feel like you've accomplished something when you don't win all 3 points. That's just the way that we are as Celtic fans. We're used to winning games. And when you don't win a game, it feels like a culture shock. But what you can leave Celtic Park tonight saying is that the positives are there, the signs are there, that in, you know, maybe a year's time, if Brendan Rodgers is given the right back and he can do it. And what I'm happy with is the fact that we've got a manager now who's building on what we've done. One of the major concerns with Ange Postecoglou leaving the club was that Brendan Rodgers or whoever else would have came in wouldn't have been able to pick up where we left off on a European level. Brendan Rodgers has. And Brendan Rodgers always was going to be, considering his first spell. But take that story aside, we went out there tonight and we tried. We put our heart onto the park and we done a lot of things right. And I think if a wee bit of luck was maybe on our side, who knows, we could have left the game with all 3 points. It just sadly didn't end that way. It's tough because you want to be critical, but at the same time, a point against Atlético Madrid was always going to be a result that I was going to be happy with personally. But what it does do is it enhances the frustration of the Lazio game even more. A game where we could have and should have won, that we threw away in the 90th minute to a late winner. It makes it all the harder to take. Because even if we were sitting here with 2 points at the moment, it would have been a lot better than 1 point. So all these things that come back to bite you, they come back to bite you in a bigger scale. But the lads try tonight. And as much as I'd love to sit here and moan and complain and be disappointed with not leaving with all 3 points, it's so difficult to do when you consider the stature of the opponent you're coming up against. It really is. But we'll try and do it anyway. Starting 11 was exactly what I expected. No changes from the weekend. There couldn't be any changes from the weekend. That is the best Celtic 11 at this moment in time. That includes Lewis Palma starting games. That includes Liam Scales starting games. That was the 11 that had to start. Brendan Rodgers got that on the money. And we started the game exactly how you'd want Celtic to start the game at Celtic Park. We used the atmosphere to our advantage. We used Atlético being rattled to our advantage. And we got the lead very early on with a fantastically worked goal, may I add. It wasn't a wee tap-in. It wasn't a goal that was lucky. That was pure broad ball at its finest. Kyogo, he's not missing from there. But the build-up to the goal was fantastic. The intensity building to that goal in the first few minutes was fantastic. I just wish that it was an intensity that we were willing and able to show throughout the entire of the 90 minutes. It's impossible though. It's so easy to sit here as a Celtic fan and say, the way we started the game is the way we should play through the whole 90. You can't do that. It's not sustainable. You cannot play the way that we did in the opening 5 minutes throughout the course of a 90 minutes. And some people might think that's possible. It's not. Because come 60, 70 minutes into the game, Atlético would be all over us. You have to tone it down. It's just required at this level. Against a team of the quality of Atlético Madrid, you need to tone it down. Should we have toned it down as much as we did? We'll come on to that. But that opening 5 minutes was electric. We got the goal we deserved. We were thoroughly in control of the opening 5 minutes. We set the tone early days. And it rattled Atlético. For all the quality world-class players that they have, we showed that, well, listen, this is a team that is going to take it to the edge. This is a team that's going to push you as far as they can. And Kyogo's goal was a real trademark of that. You know, that was pushing teams to the limits. Some of the movement building to that goal was almost world-class. It was almost like the Atlético players couldn't really figure out what we were doing. There was a wee flick onto... I can't remember who got the assist now off the top of my head, which is terrible, but I think it's Matt O'Reilly. There's a wee flick onto him before we play the final pass. And you can see the Atlético players in their head. They don't know where the ball's going. They don't know what we're doing. It's almost like they never expected. It's almost like they're like, oh, a team like this shouldn't be playing a ball like that. But we did. And we had them rattled early doors. And after we got that goal, I thought we actually contained the game really well. I thought that we played well. And we tried to limit what they could do. And we just give away a penalty, which is... Now that I've looked back at the highlight, I so want to take, because I think on another day, maybe, just maybe, the penalty isn't awarded. I think that they're quite right in awarding the penalty, I must say. I don't think it's a bad decision by the referee. It is most likely a penalty. But on another day, another referee, he doesn't give that. But we have to take it, don't we? Atlético score the penalty. And it's incredible. Do you know what? This is the thing. Celtic never, in the last decade, have had the luck on their side. We all know that. And this is another fine example of that. Celtic didn't have the luck on their side. Joe Hart tips the ball into the post. If you go back, if you were in the stadium, you might not have seen Joe Hart getting a touch to it, but he does. Let me tell you that. You can hear it. You can hear it through the microphones. Joe Hart gets a touch onto it. He just doesn't get enough of a touch onto it because it nicely guides the ball onto Antoine Griezmann. And he scores the goal. That's Celtic's luck in Europe. The fact that we do save a penalty, the fact that they do miss a penalty, but the rebound is presented right there for him. It's only Celtic that can happen to. Let's not kid around. It's only Celtic that can happen to. However, what I will say is, if that goal doesn't go in, I genuinely don't think Celtic score their second goal. I think that gave us the energy, the optimism, the momentum, the motivation, all those buzzwords. I think that gave Celtic what they needed to go and score that second. We might have ended the half at 1-0. It's just as good as 2-1 though. Because we went up and we responded the best way we possibly could. Lewis Palma, no mistake about it. He puts his foot through the ball. I want to see more of that in Europe. I want to see more confidence for a player to take on a shot. We don't need to pass the ball to the goal in every opportunity. And I'm not saying that Lewis Palma struck it for 30 yards, for God's sake. But I think a lot of teams in the modern age of football, Lewis Palma in that position that he was in, probably tries to find a pass somewhere in the edge of the box, rather than having the confidence to go for it himself. He makes no mistake about it and he puts it in. We wouldn't have got that goal without the penalty going in, let's be honest. Like, who knows where the game would have been. There's no point in playing hypotheticals around this. But I think that the fact that they got that goal gave Celtic the energy they needed to once again find the energy that they had at the start of the game to go and score that second goal. I was really proud of the Celtic first half performance. Really proud of it. Against a team like Atlético Madrid, who most people would write you off against, you've got to be happy going 2-1 at half time. Just the second half lets us down a wee bit, doesn't it? I feel like the second half is where you can scrutinise both the team and the manager the most. I don't think we met the second half with the same intensity, the same pressure that we did the first half. I think we took our foot off the gas a little bit. But once again, I need to bring back that first comment that I made earlier in the video. You can't sustain that throughout a 90 minutes with the players that we have and the opposition to come up against. Like, I think there's going to be a lot of people who will be like, oh no, you can do that. Keep pressing, keep doing what you're doing. You're playing a team who quite clearly are worlds apart from Celtic tonight. Let me put that out there. Some of the stuff that Atlético Madrid done tonight was stuff you never see at Parkhead, quite rightly, because they are a world class team. The world class players, Antoine Griezmann, Alvaro Morata, all the rest of it, Rodrigo de Paul. Some of the stuff you're doing, you're like, oh my god. You know what I mean? You can't sustain that against an Atlético Madrid, because they'll take advantage of it and they'll make it easy for themselves. You tire yourselves out, they find that gap with the passing ability, the movement ability, and just the intelligence that they've got as a team. They will pick that apart. So you can't do that. You simply can't. So many people, you can hear comments going around at Celtic Park going, oh, just keep pressing, keep pressing, keep pressing. Yeah, that's a good thing. It is a good thing. But at a point in the game, they're going to find the holes. And they have the ability to find those holes. They really do. But we didn't meet it with the same intensity as we did in the first half, and Atlético get their equaliser. It's a tough equaliser to take, because when I looked at it from where I was sitting in the ground, I'm thinking to myself, that's a preventable goal. But you look back on it, it's a fantastic header from Morata. It's one of those ones, once again, just like Cavani did against us years ago for PSG. You look at it, you watch it, and you go, takes another level of player to do that. There's no chance a Ross County player or an Inverness player or Hibs players coming to Celtic Park to do that, because he meets it with such conviction. Cameron Carter-Vickers, you could argue, does lose his man a little bit, but he meets it and he puts it in target, and Joe Hart's never going to save it because he puts the direction on the header. It's world-class football. And they get themselves back into the game. And from that point, we had to rethink our strategy. Brendan Rodgers certainly did rethink his strategy, and he changed things. Was it for the better? Was it for the worse? Let's discuss. He went 5-3-2. He changed things up. He took off Luis Palma, who was on a yellow card, may I add. He took him off. He brought on Nat Phillips. And then later in the game, he obviously takes off Kyogo and he brings on James Forrest. He played a 5-3-2 for the majority of the second half, from when we conceded the equaliser anyway. Luis Palma's probably a smart substitution, considering he was on a yellow card. And by all accounts, I think that Nat Phillips came on and had a great game. I thought that Nat Phillips was basically perfect, I must say. And at the time, I was angry. I'm not going to lie, I was. You know me, Brendan Rodgers' biggest fan. Wouldn't criticise a thing that he does. At the time, I was angry. Come 90 minutes, I was like, no, do you know what? It was the right thing to do. I think he had to bring on Nat Phillips, bring in that stability at the back, make sure that we at least leave Celtic Park with a point. I thought Nat Phillips had a basically perfect game. One thing I did think was wrong was taking off Kyogo. I think he took off the wrong man. I would have took off Maeda, personally. My dad reinforced that point when I got in the car. He said that I would have took off Maeda. He looked knackered a wee bit. I think that Kyogo just has that extra technical ability. If you do get that chance in the final third, Kyogo's a better chance of scoring than Maeda is. And he brought on Forrest for him. So that was the only criticism I'd have of the manager. But once again, I think that if you look at it throughout the 90 minutes, I think Brendan Rodgers set us up spot on again. We took the key chances that we had in the first half. In years gone by, we wouldn't have scored those 2 goals. But we did tonight. I think that you can see the confidence oozing into this Celtic side, which, if you have to take any positive from tonight, that's a positive in its own. You know, the fact that we managed to do that, put away those chances, where in previous years we wouldn't. But from 2-2 onwards, it just felt like we were... I don't think Atlético were anything special. It's not like they had chances to win the game. It's not like I was on the edge of my seat, biting my nails, with pebbles falling at my arse. It was just really difficult. And a world-class team makes it difficult. I really don't know what direction to take the reaction and the video in itself, because I just feel like, you know, it's hard because I'm happy with a draw against Atletico Madrid. At the start of the group, if you told me we'd draw with Atletico at home, I'd be buzzing. It's just when you take into the other results and wider context, it does make it a bit harder to take. It makes it a sore one. And now we know the position that we're in. We done well to make sure that we walked out with a point tonight. I think that we set up defensively really well. Scales, again, having a good game. I think it'd be really harsh to go in on any Celtic player and say they had a bad game tonight. I thought that the worst player in the park, and I use worst very loosely. You know what I mean? I use that really, really loosely. I thought Taylor struggled in that left-hand side for me. Everybody else I thought was on a good game, and I don't think Taylor had necessarily a bad game. I just thought that he was probably the one that struggled the most. But they all contributed to making sure that Atletico didn't do what Lazio done. And that was the lesson that we had to learn. I just wish that we were able to go and find a third goal this time round, a late goal this time round, that could have maybe saw us with all 3 points. But with that 5-3-2, it became harder. We didn't take advantage of Atletico going down to 10 men, maybe the way that we should have. But there's such a weird complex of thinking. When they go down to 10 men, it's like, yeah, go for it. But they've got the quality to hit you on a counter-attack and leave you regretting those decisions. They've got players like Griezmann, who was unbelievable tonight. You know, it's all well and good saying, go for it when they're down to 10 men. One good pass and it's done. That's what happened with Lazio. That's how Pedro got his goal. So I think a draw is probably a fair result at the end of the game. Wider context, just a wee bit tough. Now we need to hope that Feyenoord managed to do the reverse result of what they've done tonight and win the game away from home. That leaves Lazio on 4. I've accepted that going to Madrid's going to be a tough task. Most likely you're losing that game. But if we can go into match day 5 on a point, and if Lazio are on 4 points, if Feyenoord can beat them again, we can beat Lazio away from home. We can get something against Feyenoord at home. Third place is still very much up for grabs. A point was vital tonight. Listen, I'm proud of Celtic. They've tried. They have fought hard in all 3 games with slices of hard luck, with fighting hard. They've done everything in their power to try and get those results. The board need to realise the initial tools are there. They need to build on that now. They need to give Brendan Rodgers the tools that he wants. And we can compete with the best of the best. We can compete with Feyenoord. We can compete with Lazio, Atletico Madrid. We've shown in years gone by we can compete with Bayern Munich. We can compete with Manchester City. We can do these things. The manager needs the back and he's got the right ideas. There is no denying that. And I hope that they can notice that. So aye. Right, do you know what? I'm going to wrap up. If you can't tell, I'm half cut. So we'll dive deeper into it tomorrow or such on the channel. But I really do appreciate all of your views, your likes, your opinions. Keep them piling into the comments. But for now, that's going to do it. Make sure to hit like and subscribe. And I'll see you all next time.